You all know what this is a symbol of, and no doubt might be sick of already hearing about the Olympic Games, but you're going to hear a lot more over the next couple of weeks, aren't you? But I just thought it might be something to capitalise on for Sabbath school today. Now, the Olympic rings, when the modern Olympic Games began back in 1896, there were no rings. And in 1913, Pierre de Coubertin created the rings, and in the 5 colours with the white background. And at that stage in history, all of those colours and the white background represented were from every nation, their flags. So there was no country that wasn't represented by those colours, their flag. The visual representation of global unity aligns with the Olympic ideal of promoting international understanding through sport. So the 5 rings represent the union of the 5 inhabited countries. All right, and there's all the different colours of the flag. There might be variations of the blues and whatever, and there's many there that you would recognise. Today there is an extra colour. There's orange in some countries' flags, but wasn't there when it was at first, the rings were first designated. All right, each colour represents a different part of the world. As you can see there, blue represents Europe, the yellow represents Asia, black the African area, green Australia and Oceania, and the red the Americas. Of course, Antarctica isn't inhabited, so it's not represented. The Olympic motto, there it is. In English, faster, higher, stronger. The Olympic Games inspire people to overcome political, economic, gender, racial and religious differences, and to forge friendships in spite of those differences, and also to have respect for oneself, for one's body, for others, for rules and regulations, for sport and the environment. The 3 core values of the Olympics are excellence, respect and friendship. All good qualities. So the Olympics are not just about sport, but they're about engendering some of these wonderful qualities. The flaming torch symbol, we all know that so well and see it in different forms these days because each country chooses a different design that they want to have. It can be associated with enlightenment, illumination, the pursuit of knowledge, and can also represent passion, energy, strength. And in ancient times, a flaming torch was used to guide travellers in the dark, symbolising a beacon of hope and guidance. In the context of the modern games, the Olympic flame is a manifestation of the positive values that man has always associated with the symbolism of fire, and thus makes the link between the ancient and the modern games. A few months before the opening of the Olympic Games, as we know, the flame is lit in Olympia and then is sent on its journey to the host city. With the Olympic Games, there are medals given, and these are the ones that will be given this year at the Paris Olympics. They feature a hexagon-shaped piece of iron which was being taken from the original Eiffel Tower that was built in 1889, and part of it had to be replaced, and so they kept the metal, and each athlete will receive a piece of the old Eiffel Tower. Can you believe there are 5,080 for gold, silver and bronze medals that will be awarded at the Paris Games? And each medal weighs about half a kilo. That's quite a heavy medal, isn't it? With a medal for the Paralympics, this is the back of them. You'll notice that that's like looking up the Eiffel Tower from down below. And on the a site that you don't often get to be able to view like that. And on each side, and it's a bit difficult to see, in Braille are the words Paris and 2024. And that's there because they're paying tribute to Louis Braille, the French inventor. Now, how many countries are taking part in the Olympics this year? Well, it tells us that there are about 10,500 athletes who are representing 203 National Olympic Committee areas across 32 sports and in 329 events. The biggest delegation comes from America, and they're the top number of delegates sports people who are going to the Olympics. Australia has the third highest, 460 people going, the athletes. And of those, the oldest one is Shane Rose, he's an equestrian, and the youngest is 14, she's a skateboarder. What a privilege for a young lady like that. Can you guess what the sport is that we've had the most success in over the years? Swimming, that's right, all right. Ever since the 1900 Olympics in Paris, we've had won medals in swimming. The only one we didn't, of the modern games, the only one we didn't win anything was the 1896 ones in Athens, when we only had a runner to represent Australia. Australia is one of 5 countries that have been represented and taken part in every Summer Olympic Games. That's quite incredible, isn't it? And the 3 that are asterisked have won medals at each one of those Olympic Games. The United States has hosted the Olympics for 8 times, 4 Summer Olympics and 4 Winter Olympics. And the next Olympics in 2028, they will be hosting again in Los Angeles. This symbol, do you recognise it? This is the symbol for the Paralympics. All right, and it's represented with the 3, they call them agatos, red, blue and green, which are the main colours that you'll find in all flags. These crescents encircle a single point, and they mean I move, symbolising motion. And the symbol reflects the Paralympic motto, spirit in action, representing the strong will of every Paralympic who constantly inspires and excites the world with their performances, always moving forward and never giving up. Now, why have I talked about the Olympics? I thought this morning I would, because there are some lessons that we can learn from the Olympics for our spiritual walk. And I'll just touch on a few this morning. During the days of the early church, the Olympic Games were an important and famous event every 4 years, just as they are today. The Apostle Paul used these games, with which most everyone of his day was familiar, to help him explain vital spiritual principles. And the same principles apply to God's people today. The first known Olympic contest took place back in 776 BC. And thereafter the games were scheduled at 4-year intervals, just as they are today. And for almost 1,200 years, until AD 394, when they were abolished by the Roman emperor after Greece lost its independence. For the first 13 Olympiads, the only event was a foot race of about 180 metres. So the games lasted for only 1 day, and the only participants were men. Gradually, though, other events such as chariot races, boxing, wrestling, discus and javelin were added, and the duration of the games was extended. The greatest honour any Greek could attain was winning the olive leaf as a victor. Paul in Hebrews encourages us to lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Sin is a heavy burden that holds us back and thwarts us. The race that Paul alludes to is not a short 600 or 100 metre dash, but rather a marathon. An Olympic athlete can't afford to carry unnecessary weight, just as us in our spiritual marathon can't afford to carry the weight of sin or any other weight for that matter. Heavy clothing for athletes is slowing, hindering, and they don't need it. Runners in the original games often went so far as even running naked to avoid any unnecessary encumbrances. But as Christians, we have been called and chosen to participate in this race, this marathon of life, and it's a race for eternal life. To reject this opportunity could mean the end of our salvation. Athletes have to strive and work hard to endure hardships for their success, and they have to abide by the rules of the contest. In the same way, we as God's people must be obedient to the laws of the greatest judge of all, God himself. Paul exhorts us to run with endurance the race that is set before us. Run in such a way that you may obtain it. Paul urges us to run earnestly with the comforting knowledge that although only one person is an Olympic race winner, everyone who runs the race of the spiritual marathon can win. Everyone can. To participate in this spiritual marathon, you don't have to be a beautifully conditioned athlete. There's no specific age qualification. And the official judge of the race, God himself, doesn't discriminate against men or women, colour, creed, or anything else. But we do have to be a Christian willing to follow God's leading. We need to drive ourselves forward with every ounce of spiritual strength and determination that we have, just as an Olympic class athlete urges and pushes their body onto achievement. Corinthians 9:24-27 says, "Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Only one person in each race receives the victor's wreath or garland back in the original games. But the race of life, we can all be winners, as I said before. God wants to see that we are really meaning business in following his way of life. He wants to see us build a tough, resilient spiritual character." Hebrews 12:2 shows the importance of having a goal to strive for in our life. Just as Olympic competitors fix their eyes on the finishing tape or the goal that they have to reach, we need always only to look at Jesus as the author and finisher of our faith. He was there at the start of our individual race, showing us the way to go, and he will be there at the finish, and he's there along the way too, as our trainer, as our coach, and our encourager along the way. We know our goal of entering God's kingdom, and we need to keep our eyes on that goal and never deviate from it. Because of the long distance, the field of runners spreads out quickly, and at times you may feel that you're running all alone in this race. At other times you might see runners pass you and you're tempted to give up in discouragement. And then on a race like a marathon, there's always the pain of blisters or just plain fatigue. What a relief it would be to quit. But then there's also the threat of heat and humidity along the way, which can sap our strength, but still you go on. Finally, you will reach the long-awaited finish line and you will rejoice. Oh, I think I got the wrong one there. Along the way, we might stumble and we might have times when things just don't go right for us. But as Paul said, run in such a way that you may obtain the prize. All right, only one person has come first in the race, and that's Jesus. But you know, when you've run and you've done your best, you too can feel the victory that is yours. We can look to the outstanding examples set by men and women of faith when we read Hebrews 11. And by meditating on some of those examples, it keeps us focused, just as athletes keep focused on their goal. They have other people who have done it before them and they have encouraged them along the way. Nearing the end of his life, Paul used an Olympic Games analogy to graphically sum up his life's endeavours. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Finally, there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give me on that day. And not only to me, but also to all those who have loved his appearing. My prayer is that you will win in your personal spiritual Olympic Games and marathon. God bless.